Today I'm in Dallas, Texas, and we'll be visiting the graves of a number of notable people, including Kennedy assassination figures, notorious crime figures, and a legendary family whose name is synonymous with professional wrestling. My first stop is in northeast Dallas at Wrestland Memorial Park. Wrestland is a very large cemetery that is the final resting place of more than 125,000 people. My only stop here is going to be at the grave of Captain Will Fritz. Captain Fritz was the longtime chief of the Dallas Homicide Division, and on November 22, 1963, he was the primary interrogator of Harvey Oswald, following his arrest for the assassination of President John Kennedy. On November 24, 1963, Captain Fritz planned to transfer Oswald to the Dallas County Jail and was present when Jack Ruby shot Oswald in the basement of Dallas Police Headquarters. In the following years, Captain Fritz refused all requests to publicly discuss the details of the Kennedy and Oswald murders. Captain Will Fritz retired on February 27, 1970. He died from complications of cancer on April 19, 1984. My next stop is at Crown Hill Memorial Park, which is the final resting place of Bonnie Parker. Upon entering the cemetery from Webb's Mill Road, bear to the left at the fork and you will see a row of hedges on your left. Bonnie's grave is located directly behind these hedges. Bonnie and Clyde formed one of the most feared crime duos of the 1930s and were responsible for the murder of at least 9 law enforcement officers. On May 23, 1934, while driving on a country road south of Gippsland, Louisiana, Bonnie and Clyde were killed by law enforcement in an ambush. While Bonnie and Clyde wanted to be buried together, Bonnie's mother, who was resting next to her daughter, said no and had her buried here at Crown Hill Memorial Park. Leaving Crown Hill, I make my way south of downtown Dallas to Laurel Land Memorial Park, where I find the grave of Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit. On November 22, 1963, about 45 minutes after shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade, Officer Tippit encountered Harvey Oswald near the corner of 10th and Patton Streets in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas. After a brief conversation, Oswald pulled a pistol and shot Officer Tippit 4 times. Tippit was transported to Methodist Hospital, where he was pronounced dead on arrival. On Monday, November 25th, the same day that President Kennedy's funeral was taking place in Washington, Officer Tippit was laid to rest here at Laurel Land Memorial Park. My next stop is at Grove Hill Cemetery, which is located east of Dallas near the Cotton Bowl and State Fair Park. My first stop here is at the gravesite of former Dallas Police Chief Jess Curry. Jess Curry joined the Dallas Police Department in 1936 and worked his way up through the ranks. He served as Chief of Police from 1960 to 1969. And on November 22, 1963, Curry was riding in the lead car of President Kennedy's motorcade as it made its way through the streets of Dallas. Following the assassination, Chief Curry personally directed the department's investigation. Following his retirement in 1969, he wrote a book which centered on the assassination and the investigation that followed. On June 22, 1980, Chief Curry suffered a fatal heart attack at his home. He was 66 years old. My next stop at Grove Hill is at the gravesite of one of the legendary families in professional wrestling. The Atkinson family is better known as the Von Erichs. And while the Von Erich name is legendary in professional wrestling, it is also regarded as one of the most cursed families in all of sports. By the time Fritz Von Erich died of cancer in 1997, all 4 of his sons who had followed him in the ring had preceded him in death. David died suddenly in a Tokyo hotel room, while Mike, Chris, and Carrie all committed suicide. Kevin Von Erich is the lone surviving son of the famed Von Erich wrestling family. My final stop at Grove Hill Cemetery is at the grave of Blanche Barrow Frazier. Blanche Barrow was a member of the Bonnie and Clyde gang and was married to Clyde's brother Buck. When Buck was killed in a shootout with law enforcement near Dexter, Iowa, Blanche would not leave his side and was captured and sent to prison. After her release, she moved to Dallas, where she married Eddie Frazier in 1940. The couple lived in Dallas, where Blanche would often reminisce about her time with Bonnie and Clyde. Eddie died in 1969, and Blanche continued to live in the Dallas area until she died of cancer on December 24th, 1988. From Grove Hill Cemetery, I moved to West Dallas and a stop at the Western Heights Cemetery. This cemetery is located on busy Fort Worth Boulevard, and there is little or no parking available here. Locals will also tell you that this is a shady part of town, and that visitors should be aware of their surroundings at all times. Enter the cemetery through this gate, turn left, and follow the well-worn path to the graves of brothers Clyde and Buck Barrow. The Barrow gang was notorious during the early 1930s. Buck was killed in a shootout with police on July 29, 1933, near Dexter, Iowa, while Clyde and his partner Bonnie Parker was killed by law enforcement in an ambush on May 23, 1934, near Gibson, Louisiana. The Barrow brothers are buried next to their parents just a short distance from where they grew up as kids. From Western Heights Cemetery, I make my way west about 30 miles on Interstate 30 to Shannon Rose Hill Memorial Park. It's here that we find the grave of Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President John Kennedy. Oswald was laid to rest here on November 25, 1963, the same day that his victims, President John Kennedy and Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit, were being laid to rest in Washington and Dallas. The only people attending Oswald's brief graveside service was his wife and children, his mother, his brother, and reporters who were assigned to cover the burial. The reporters were pressed into service to carry the casket to the open grave. Oswald's mother, Marguerite, died in 1981 and is buried in an unmarked grave next to her son. This concludes my visit to the cemeteries in Dallas, Texas. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button below. And if you want to keep up with my travels, please consider subscribing. Until my next adventure, thanks for watching.